everyone. It's been a minute since we did Mums and Murder, but it's just been a crazy couple of months with work and operations and Christmas and New Year and everybody starting back to school and stuff. So hey, hi, welcome back. I am excited to bring you a couple of new stories that I have researched. Was a while ago. I have them all written down, so you'll excuse me if I look up and down a little bit. Our first story today is going to be about Nanny Doss. Have you heard of her? She's also known as the Giggling Granny. She's not really like any granny I would know or state to know, but each to their own, I suppose. Oh, it feels so good to be back. Anyhow, I would just like to wish everybody a happy new year. I know I'm a bit late, and I hope that everybody is back into the swing of school runs and routine and work and all of life's lovely stuff. I'm hoping to have some exciting new things coming up in 2023 for me and my family, but that's just a watch this space kind of a thing, and I am excited to be back doing videos. So let's just get stuck right in. Why not? So yes, Nanny Doss. Nanny Doss was born on the 4th of November in 1905, and she died on the 2nd of June in 1965. Good long life for Nanny Doss. She got the nickname Nanny because when she was little, she had a sweet demeanour as a child, and everybody just called her Nanny. And again, she was also known as the Giggling Granny because she always had a smile on her face. She just seemed like a granny. She looked like a granny. She looked like a loving granny. But unfortunately, we wouldn't be here if that was the case, and it certainly wouldn't be about her if that was the case. So, on we go. Nanny Doss, her real name was Nancy Hazel. She was one of 5 children. Oh, my earpiece falling out, sorry. She was one of 5 children, and she had 1 brother and 3 sisters. And then herself, obviously. Childhood was not a perfect childhood. It was far from it. Her father was a very abusive man. He was very controlling. He would make them work on the farm instead of going to school, and this meant that they all kind of suffered academically. So, yeah, not so good. So Nanny, or Nancy, was your typical sweet little happy girl. In later life, she got married, she had children and grandchildren. However, looks can be deceiving, and she managed to kill up to 11 people, and some of which were her own kids. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to bring it to you. Let's get stuck right in. At the age of 7, Nanny went on the train to visit some family with her mother, and the train stopped abruptly, or crashed something, but it stopped abruptly anyway, and Nanny went flying forward, and she actually got an extremely bad head injury. It was that bad she had to get a metal plate put into her head. So perhaps this may have altered something inside her brain and may have led to what we're going to discuss as the video goes on. Who knows? But yeah, could have. The thing that Nanny loved to do the most when she was younger was she loved her mother, and she loved reading her mother's romance novels as a young girl, teenager, and she would have got lost in them. I suppose it took her away from her father, who again was the controlling and abusive man in her life, and she just drifted off in these romance novels and magazines that belonged to her mother, and get stuck in a land, and unfortunately I think this may have also impacted her life a little bit when it came to husbands and romance and things like that. Sad. Sure. So, at the age of 16, Nanny met a man called Charlie Braggs, and after only 4 months, yeah, you heard me, 4 months of going out, dating, courting, whatever it was in that time, they decided that they were going to get married. They loved each other. They didn't care what anybody else thought. We're going to do it. We're going to get married. Nanny was so happy about getting married to Charlie. She couldn't wait. Of course, she'd been writing all these romance novels, and she could not wait to start her brand new life with her new husband in their own home. Sadly, this was semi-not the case. Unfortunately for Nanny, and unbeknownst to her, I think, at the time of marriage, they actually were moving in with Charlie's mother. So she was moving in with her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law is said to have been just as abusive, just as controlling as her own father was. She just went from the frying pan into the fire, really. She tried her best, but nothing was ever good enough. She was told she was a bad wife, she was a bad housekeeper, she was a bad mother, she was a bad daughter-in-law, she was just bad. She was just bad at everything. That Charlie, obviously, he married beneath himself. Although I don't think, based on what I've read about his mother, that anybody was going to really cut it for her. So anytime they tried to have a little one-on-one time, little date nights, little, it's just you and me, la la la, his mother would end up ill. She would take little dizzy spells, any excuse under the book so that the two of them couldn't spend that probably very needed quality time together. Now, however, saying that, they did manage to have 4 kids together, so they did manage to get some form of alone time over the years. But, it's nice to just go out, get dressed up, even just go for a walk. It's nice to do those things, just the two of you. It doesn't always just have to be about the other stuff. So, I do feel for her at this point. However, as sweet as Nanny did seem, Nanny has a dark side to her. And Charlie would say that if Nanny was in a mood, he would not eat or drink anything that she had prepared in the house. However, he didn't do anything with these suspicions. He just decided himself that he wasn't going to eat or drink any of these things. Unfortunately, his suspicions were right, and it came to a boiling point when Nanny actually killed 2 of her own children. She had given them dinner, they fell ill, Charlie came home from work, and she told him that, they've got food poisoning. In a couple of hours they had died. Doctor came out to check them. Of course, she said it was food poisoning. Doctor had absolutely no reason not to believe that it was anything other than food poisoning at that point. And that was it, yeah. That was pretty much it. She got away with killing 2 of her children. So Charlie, he decided that enough was enough, and he was leaving. And he took their oldest child with them, but left the baby Florine with Nanny. I mean, I understand it's a baby and it needs its mother. However, if you've just suspected your wife, the mother of your children, of killing 2 of your children, would you just take one of those other children away from it? It's just a bit odd, is how I feel. It's just very, very odd that he only took one and left her with the other one. And again, I understand, baby, blah blah blah, but So, in 19 1928, Charlie returned with his eldest daughter and he asked for a divorce. During this time, Nanny was still living with the abusive mother-in-law. Let's keep that in mind, who was still on the go. And she was told, give me a divorce, you can have your daughter back. And that's what happened. Charlie and Nanny got divorced and their eldest daughter, Malvine, came back to her mother. So Nanny returned to the Lonely Heart columns, bless her, to find that true love and happiness that she's just craved her entire life. Just 1 year after divorce, she married her second husband, and that was Frank Harrelson. They wrote beautiful letters. He was, however, an abusive alcoholic. Their marriage only lasted 16 years, during which time Nanny managed to kill her newborn granddaughter by pinpricking her head and her grandson by suffocation. Again, police were not involved. All of the deaths were ruled as natural or accidental, and nobody asked any questions. So her children, these were her grandchildren, and so her children had children, these are her grandchildren. She was left to look after them for a start, which, you know, no. And she had her beautiful newborn baby granddaughter, and obviously babies' heads are very sensitive when they're first born, and you need to protect them a whole lot. She decided to pinprick the top of the baby's head until it died. A loving nanny right there. And then she decided to suffocate her grandson. So she killed 2 of her grandchildren in the 16-year marriage that she had that was a complete mess and toxic, that she should have left probably a lot earlier than when they did leave. But again, nothing is done. There's no police involvement. The deaths are ruled as natural. I suppose it's hard to pinprick. Yeah, I get it, but deaths all ruled as natural. No family suspicions at this point. I mean, her own daughters even. Oh, Mom, 2 of my siblings died and now 2 of my children have died and all were under your care. No. She's just an unlucky person, because Nanny was like a nanny and she smiled and came across as this loving human being, but she wasn't. So far, she has killed 4 people, and 4 of which were all her own. 2 children and 2 grandchildren. Nice. Yes, nice indeed. There was still no police involvement. She had taken out life insurances on her grandchildren just a few weeks before she killed them. But no, this was all natural, all just perfectly normal. Still married to Frank. Is it Frank, this one? Yeah, still married to Frank. And he was still a full-blown alcoholic. He was out at World War II. He had just come back. He went out with his friends. He came back to the house, was looking for Nanny to do her wifely duties, we'll put it that way. She didn't want to. He ended up raping her, and so the next day Nanny filled up his moonshine with rat poison and Frank died, and again his death was ruled as food poisoning or some other ailment, but not murder. So now she has killed 2 children, 2 grandchildren and a husband so far. So Nanny being Nanny, she took herself off to the Lonely Hearts column once again. And this is where we come into contact with husband number 3. How she could be bothered, I do not know. So husband number 3 was Artie Lanning. And they were married in just, I mean, did we think the first one was quick at 4 months? They got married within 2 days of meeting each other. 2 days. Anybody else see this as a red flag? No, okay then. 2 days. That's crazy. It's just insane. 2 days. You don't even know what sort of coffee they like in 2 days. How on earth could you manage to marry someone in that time? So, to Artie's family, Nanny was the perfect wife. Just 2 years in, and no surprise, Artie passed away. And his death was ruled as suspected heart attack brought on by the flu. That's not what it was, but that's what it was ruled as. Unfortunately, Artie had left his house to his sister, but before she could even claim it, it was mysteriously burnt to the ground. Nanny then moved in with Artie's mother, and yes, she died in her sleep, as Nanny collected the insurance money for the house that he had left to his sister, that she had burnt down to the ground, moved in with his mother, killed his mother, and then took the insurance money, and that was that. That was poor Artie, or Arlie's family, and nobody really seen that coming either. Although, you know, the 2 days, they went to 2 days, and they married. So after this, Nanny then moved in with her sister, who was dying. She was dying of cancer. And not long after Nanny moved in, she had passed away. We don't know. We can't say that Nanny helped her along the way there, or if that was natural causes, but she just passed along the way. So we're assuming at this point it's about 7 people that she's killed. 3 husbands, 2 kids, and 2 grandkids. Possibly a mother-in-law, possibly a sister. So for factual it's 7, but could be a few more. We don't know. So husband number 4, because Nanny being Nanny is the damn good old romantic soul that she is. Possibly a little too many of those romance novels as a teenager. She just wasn't having the best of luck. She went back to the Lonely Hearts column. She changed her approach because she wasn't having any luck there. And she moved on to what was called the Diamond Club, which was a singles club. And here she met husband number 4, Richard Morton. Now, Richard wasn't a drinker, which was good because the rest of them were drinkers. But Richard had a bit of a wandering eye. We all know what that means. He liked the ladies, he liked the attention of the ladies, he liked the company of the ladies that were not his wife. So Nanny at this point was busy. Anyway, she was looking after her mother, who had moved in with them after her father passed away. Her mother had broken her hip. 3 days she was in, and after 3 days of being at home with Nanny, or moving in with Nanny and Richard, she was complaining of having cramps in her stomach. Now, I'm sure we can all assume that we know where this is going, and it's definitely not food poisoning. 3 months later, she passed away. As for Richard, he drank a flask full of coffee and arsenic and died. So, husband 4 died from coffee and arsenic poisoning. Well, arsenic poisoning that was put in his coffee flask. And her mother died from some form of poisoning. I assume arsenic, since now that was her poison of choice, and that poison wasn't anymore. And there we go. We are now on to husband number 5. Whoop, whoop, whoop. This woman can really do it. So, Samuel Doss. Last, but maybe not least. He was completely different from her other husbands. He was not an alcoholic. He was not abusive. He was not a cheater. He, in fact, was a minister, a Nazareth minister. Now, the only thing about him was he was very strict. Not abusive, just strict. He liked things for the children to be educational. No silliness. I suppose that's fair enough. No romance novels, please. they were not educational, and they were uncalled for, really. So he banned her romance novels. Anyway, Nanny left Samuel for a short time, but she returned when he took out not one but 2 life insurances on himself and placed her name on his bank account. So basically she left until he did these things. So I'm not going to come back until you get life insurance and then put me on your bank and then put me down as the recipient of your life insurance. Now, considering how many people had died at this point under Nanny's care or married to her, I am just so shocked that he was so easily manipulated, because he seems, I'm a minister and this is not right, but he did it. Anyway, he did it. In 1953, Samuel was admitted to hospital with flu-like symptoms. However, actually he was being poisoned, and he was being poisoned by a prune cake, or he was poisoned by a prune cake. Not by a prune cake. The prune cake was laced with, get grip here. Prune cake was laced with poison. He ate the prune cake, which obviously Nanny had made for him, and he had poisoning. He had, I think it was arsenic poisoning. I'm not entirely sure, but he survived. He did. She didn't do a very good job, and he survived, which Nanny was not very, very happy about. This, she obviously realised she hadn't hit a good enough amount, or he hadn't consumed enough of the prune cake. But sure, back in those days. So instead she decided to lace his coffee, and that pretty much did it. He died, and she received all the money. But finally there was some suspicion. Suspicious. Don't be suspicious. When Samuel died just a few days after being released. So she was successful, but a little bit too quick off the mark. His doctor convinced Nanny into letting them perform an autopsy, and during the autopsy there obviously was arsenic found, enough arsenic to have killed a horse. Wow. And police were alerted, and Nanny was arrested. Nanny made full confessions to murdering her husbands, but did not admit to family members. However, after bodies were exhumed, it was confirmed that there was arsenic was the cause of death. Nanny smiled throughout every interview she had. The giggling granny, always with a smile. That's the Nanny. Nanny said that due to hitting her head, remember on the train back when she was about 7 years old, she whacked her head and ended up with a metal plate in it. This caused her to commit the murders. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. It probably altered something somewhere, but it doesn't cause other people who have hit their head and got metal plates in them to commit murder, so you're stretching there a little bit, Nancy. Okay. 2 years after her trials began, Nanny was found to be legally insane. Well, I'm not even really shocked by that at all, because she is insane and didn't think anything of just poisoning people. Like, I like you, I'll poison you. Well, sure, okay. And she was sentenced to life in prison, and she died after 10 years of being in prison with leukemia. Nanny got her nickname as everyone who would talk to of her crimes. She just smiled and laughed. So, yeah, she was definitely insane. So let's recap all of that. Nanny, who was born Nancy. She got Nanny from a young age, though I know it says the giggling granny is where she got the last nickname from. She didn't have a great childhood. Her father was abusive. He made them all stay at home, work on the farm instead of going to school and getting a good education. She fell into her mother's romance novels. At 16, she married a man, Charlie, that she knew for a whole sum of 4 months. Charlie, she ended up having 4 children with, 2 of which she killed before killing poor Charlie. No, she didn't kill Charlie. She killed 4 of her children, and Charlie actually managed to escape. Although he had his suspicions, and he wouldn't eat or drink food when Nanny was in a mood. Next up then, Nanny, husband number 2, which was Arlie Langdon, if I remember correctly. I'm so sorry guys, it's been a while. She managed to kill him off as well, which wasn't Arlie Langdon. He was number 3, Ruth. Here, where's your head? Well, anyway, so she killed off husband number 2 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But by being married to husband number 2, she also managed to kill off 2 of her grandchildren, which is quite sad. Husband number 2 was a very abusive alcoholic though, so not so nice for her. Husband number 3 was Arlie Langdon. Yes, that's right. And they got married after 2 days, and she managed to kill him off and his mother, and burn down the house and get the insurance money that was supposed to be left to his sister. Husband number 4 was Richard. Richard was a cheater. He had a little wandering eye for the ladies, and this did not go down so well, and he also ended up dead. And she also had to look after her sister and her mother in that time, and not long after they moved in with Nanny, they also ended up passing. However, her sister did have end-of-life cancer, and her mother was old and had a broken hip. So, I don't know. We don't know. Husband number 5. He was a different one altogether, and he was a minister. And he wasn't abusive or an alcoholic. He was strict. He didn't like the romance novels. He didn't like anything that was silly. He liked things to be educational in a certain way, and that's fine. It's just the way he was. But she tried to kill him with a prune cake. Didn't work out very well, so she finally offed him with a flask of coffee, which was the second time she's killed a husband with a flask of something. Coffee laced with arsenic, and this is how she got caught. The doctor persuaded her to do a post-mortem. Body was exhumed. Several family member bodies were exhumed. She admitted to killing husbands. She wouldn't admit to killing family members, although it was proven that she did. She got 10 years, and she died she got life in prison, and she died just 10 years into that life sentence with leukemia. And that's Nanny Doss. She was clinically insane, or legally insane. She would have smiled through her police interviews. She giggled and laughed when anybody asked her about her crimes. And I just, her poor daughters that she killed her children, their children. Wow. That happened. That's crazy. It's all crazy. But yeah, so that is Nanny Doss, and I want to thank you so much for joining me for my first video of 2023, and hopefully first of many, I am hoping, because I thoroughly enjoyed this. And like I said, I have a couple more stories in here, and I just have to refresh my memory a little bit better for next time. But yes, thank you all again. I hope you enjoyed this one, and bye.